Hi everybody, this is Mr. Andrew Crocker. I'm going to take a few minutes to talk about something that I mentioned in class, but I didn't want to talk about it because it was going to take too much time. But the past 48 hours has seen a lot of stunning news involving the investigation the FBI has been conducting into potential collusion between the Russian government and now President Donald Trump back in the presidential election of 2016. Now, it gets really confusing, folks. This gets really confusing to try to understand. And so what I'm going to do is try to break it down over the next few minutes to make it as easy to understand as possible. If you're sitting there and you're like, what is the collusion that they're talking about between Trump and the country of Russia, I will be your guide. Now, just keep in mind, what we're going to be talking about, while the president has been facing many areas of legal peril, I'm only talking about potential Russian collusion with the Trump campaign in 2016. I'm not talking about perjury allegations. Those do exist right now. The allegations involving Trump and Michael Cohen paying off mistresses in 2016, and the obstruction of justice or the emoluments clause lawsuits, I'm not involved. I'm not going to talk about that. Instead, I'm just going to talk about potential Russian collusion. Now, it's important for us to remember that technically the investigation that the FBI is looking into is not into collusion. Because collusion, in case you don't know, that's when two parties work together to screw over a third party. This is not a crime necessarily, and we actually see this a lot in American politics. What's a crime is when the other country you're working with is committing a crime. And if you work with them in their crime commission, that's called conspiracy. So Russia committed a crime by hacking Americans' emails, stealing those emails, and then publishing them. That's a crime. And the question is whether the Trump campaign was involved or worked with them in the commission or of that crime or using the results of that crime. Now, there are several ways that we know Russia tried to interfere in our elections. We know they tried to hack and leak Democrats' documents, primarily their emails. In addition to that, we know they unleashed media trolls to try to stir up the pot, try to spread fake news. We know they tried to outreach to the Trump campaign. Now, when we talk about the FBI investigation into Russian collusion with the Trump administration, this is what they're talking about. They are focusing primarily on reaching out to the Trump campaign and talking and working with the Trump campaign. There's actually several avenues that this could have happened in. And we don't know all the answers at this point, so all I'm telling you are allegations. I'm not telling you that this stuff has happened. Now, this one thing did happen. George Papadopoulos, who's a guy with a great name, he was a foreign policy advisor to President Trump. Or I'm sorry, I keep calling him President Trump because he is the president, but this is candidate Trump. He was a foreign policy advisor to candidate Trump. Now, what did happen, what Papadopoulos himself has confessed to happening, is that Russia reached out to this one London professor who talked to Papadopoulos at the time that Papadopoulos was a Trump foreign policy advisor. The professor said, hey, we've got email dirt on Hillary Clinton. We've got emails. When we release them, it'll make her look bad. And Papadopoulos said this is awesome, told a bunch of people in the Trump campaign about it, and started bragging about it, including to an Australian diplomat. Now, the Australian diplomat went to the FBI, and the FBI asked him about that, asked Papadopoulos about it. Papadopoulos lied, and is currently, right now, serving in prison for lying. But we don't know exactly what he told the Trump campaign. We don't know to what extent the Trump campaign worked with Papadopoulos to maybe orchestrate or set up the release of hacked emails. So that's a mystery. We don't know exactly what to make of that. So that's one way collusion could have happened. Now, another way collusion could have happened was the infamous Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016. Now, at this point, Donald Trump is the Republican nominee for president, and this is in the heat of the presidential election. It is just heating up between him and Hillary Clinton. Now, oddly enough, this starts with a music producer, a music publicist, some guy named Rob Goldstone, who reached out to the president's son, Donald Trump Jr., and he said, hey, once again, Moscow has email dirt on Hillary Clinton. Now, this is interesting. Donald Trump Jr. said, if that's what you got, I love it. Let's see if we could set something up in Trump Tower. And so this began a multi-week affair where they tried to arrange that meeting. Now, the meeting eventually took place, and look at these heavyweights that showed up. Trump's campaign advisor, Trump's son-in-law, and of course Donald Trump Jr., Trump's own son, as well as Goldstone and several connected Russians. Now, when we found out about this meeting, Trump Jr. lied about the meeting, said it was about Russian adoptions, but now he has since admitted that he went to go get dirt from Hillary Clinton, saying that no dirt actually came from it and that the meeting was a waste of time. So be it. Perhaps if that's the case, so be it. Now, we don't know to what extent Donald Trump, the now current president, was involved in that. There's still lots of questions as to how involved he was in arranging the meeting. Obviously, if he was arranged in the meeting, then that's attempted collusion or attempted conspiracy, and that could be a big stinking deal. Now, another way that Trump collusion could have happened, Trump-Russia collusion could have happened, involves WikiLeaks. Now, WikiLeaks is an organization that tries to publish internal government documents. They believe in radical transparency, and as a result, governments kind of hate them. The American government treats them as a hostile intelligence community. Anyways, in January of 2017, just as Trump was getting sworn in, U.S. intelligence had concluded that Russia and WikiLeaks were working together. Russia had hacked Hillary Clinton's emails, and WikiLeaks was publishing them. Now, while that's pretty bad on its own, the person that runs WikiLeaks is a guy named Julian Assange, and he is believed, this is an allegation right now, he is believed to have met with Jerome Corsi. Jerome Corsi is an author, he's a friend of Donald Trump's. Now, Corsi talked to a guy named Roger Stone. This we know, this is not an allegation. We know Corsi and Roger Stone spoke to each other. And Stone, obviously very close to the president as well. Now, we know they spoke to each other, and we know Corsi told Stone that emails had been hacked, and it's time for the emails to be published at least a couple times. He predicted both email dumps effectively. Now, Roger Stone, at this time, this is during the campaign, he's communicating on a regular basis in late-night calls with candidate Donald Trump. Now, Corsi is saying that he did not get information from Julian Assange. We will see what the evidence the FBI comes up with, whether they agree with that or not. Corsi's story right now is that he learned about the email dump from a message from God, that he got a divine piece of knowledge planted in his brain, which is pretty crazy. Now, in addition to that, Roger Stone and Donald Trump have denied that any of their late-night chats involved discussion about Russian collusion or Russia publishing Hillary's emails through WikiLeaks. However, there are several tidbits of evidence from the Assange-Corsi leak to the Stone-Trump communications that seem to suggest that maybe this stuff did happen. But we don't know exactly what the truth is on that yet. We'll have to see what the FBI concludes. Now, the fourth, and as far as we're concerned, final way, I didn't do a very good job of bringing that stuff in dramatically, sorry about that, was Michael Cohen, who's a longtime legal representative of President Trump. This is the guy that gets involved in all of Trump's most sensitive deals, including paying hush money to mistresses. Well, this past week, we were all surprised in America because he just shows up in a courtroom and he admits to lying to Congress on behalf of President Trump. He said Trump himself was involved in getting him to lie on his behalf. Now, lying to Congress is a crime, and as a result, Cohen's going to serve prison time probably. But he testified to Congress originally. This is when he was lying. He said that Trump was trying to get a building in Moscow. That part's true. But that he stopped trying at the beginning of the presidential campaign in January of 2016. Turns out they were continuing to work on a Trump building in Moscow all the way through the presidential campaign summer, so somewhere around June or July in 2016. Now, that's a big deal because it creates a conflict of interest between when it involves Trump and anything involving Russia. It creates a conflict of interest. Now, that statement that he made, of course, about it being done in January was not true. And now he's working with the FBI, and we honestly don't know what he's talking about with the FBI. Now, if the FBI investigation into Donald Trump, led by Bob Mueller, is talking to Cohen, then that means he's probably talking about Russia. Cohen has millions of documents that have been seized by the FBI, so any dirty laundry he's been doing concerning mistresses or, of course, more importantly, Russian collusion, Bob Mueller is going to have access to. And that's where we find ourselves right now. We have a very complex web, And just sign after sign points to the fact that Trump had a very uncomfortably close relationship to Russia in several cases, as Russia kept trying and with various levels of success reaching out to him. What will become of all this? We'll find out if Bob Mueller and the FBI ever release their results. I imagine they probably will at some point in 2019. Stay tuned if and when that's the case.